Good morning, all, and welcome to the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners issues and updates on this August 1st, 2023. County Administrator Gary Schmidt, what's up first?
Thank you, Chair Smith. Would you please convene as the Development Agency of Clackamas County?
I will recess as the Board of County Commissioners and convene as the Development Agency of Clackamas County.
This is a request for consent agenda for the Development Agency. Item 1, approval of a resolution declaring the public necessity and purpose for acquisition of right-of-way, easements, and fee property, and authorizing good faith negotiations and condemnation actions with the Development Agency for the Monroe Street Improvements Project. Right-of-way budget is $1 million. Funding is through the Clackamas County Development Agency. No county general funds are involved. Dan Johnson, Director of Transportation and Development, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Chair Smith. Commissioners, in the interest of time, I'm going to make this short. You are familiar with these. They're a necessity before we start any capital project. The approval of this declaration of public necessity is for the Monroe Street project, which is a project being funded through our North Clackamas Revitalization Area Urban Renewal Program. This does not, as you know, any requests or necessity for condemnation would be brought before the board for discussion before any action was taken. This allows for good faith negotiations for our capital project. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Commissioners, any questions or comments?
I
Commissioner
do have
Savas?
one. Just, Dan, maybe, I think we're kind of overdue, the board is, as the development agency or the urban renewal district for that particular area for discussion about capital projects and planning, so.
Okay, we'll schedule some time.
Okay.
That's fine.
Thank you. Seeing no objections going forward, thank you, Dan.
All right, Chair, would you please reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners?
I will recess as the Development Agency and convene as the Board of County Commissioners.
Next is request for consent agenda for the board for the regular county business. We'll start with county administration. Item 1, approval of a subrecipient grant agreement with the Clackamas 800 Radio Group to support emergency response systems and to fund emergency response projects. Grant value is $2 million. Funding is through county allocated American Rescue Plan Act funds. No county general funds are involved. Nancy Bush, County Operating Officer. Patrick Williams, Deputy Director of Finance. Go ahead.
Yeah, good morning, Commissioners. Thank you. So this is the $2 million that was granted to the C800 group to finish out the towers that are along the 224, as well as the Estacada area and some of the Mount Hood area. And basically, it's it.
Patrick, any comments?
None. It was a treat working with C800.
Oh, good, wonderful. Commissioners, any questions or comments? Seeing no objections, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I love that so many members of the public have come today to watch the consent agenda. This is fantastic. All right, next, Juvenile Department. Item 1, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with the Oregon Youth Authority for providing funding for juvenile crime prevention, basic services, and diversion services. The agreement value is $2,105,315 for 2 years. Funding through the Oregon Youth Authority. No county general funds are involved. Christina McMahon, Director of Juvenile. Go ahead.
Good morning, Chair Smith, Commissioners. My name is Christina McMahon. I'm Juvenile Department Director for Clackamas County. I am here today to request that this intergovernmental agreement with the Oregon Youth Authority be placed on the consent agenda. This is our second largest source of funding for the Juvenile Department after our own county's general fund. And this funding provides critical resources to be able to provide the reformation services that we are mandated to provide to the youth of Clackamas County who become involved in the juvenile justice system.
Thank you very much. Questions or comments, Commissioners? Seeing no objections, thank you for bringing that forward.
Thank you.
Next, Health, Housing, Human Services. Item 1, approval of a revenue grant agreement from the Oregon Department of Early Learning and Care to continue coordinated enrollment services for families eligible for publicly funded preschool programs. The agreement value is $390,500 for 2 years. Funding is through the Oregon Department of Early Learning and Care. No county general funds are involved. Rod Cook, Director of Health, Housing, Human Services. Go ahead.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is a direct award to the Clackamas County Early Learning Hub to support young children The program focuses on enrolling children into preschool for families eligible for publicly funded preschool. Last year, this program served or placed 196 children in the program and served over 500 families throughout the year.
Questions or comments for the presenter? Seeing no objections, thank you very much.
Item 2, approval of a revenue intergovernmental agreement with the State of Oregon for the operation of Community Developmental Disability Services for Clackamas County. Anticipated agreement value is $29,394,999 for 2 years. Funding is through federal Medicaid funds and state general funds. No county general funds are involved.
The Clackamas County Developmental Disability Services Program provides local administration, case management, and abuse investigation. This agreement establishes the foundations for services for intellectually and developmentally impaired children and adults in Clackamas County. Last year, in the 2-year cycle, there were over 2,400 clients served.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Thank you. Next, Transportation and Development. Item 1, approval of an annual intergovernmental agreement with Metro to implement the fiscal year 23-24 annual waste reduction and recycle at work program. Total revenue is $764,216 for 1 year. Funding is through the regional system fees collected on tons of waste disposed in the Metro Service District. No county general funds are involved. Dan Johnson, Director of Transportation and Development. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Chair Smith, Commissioners. It's that wonderful time of year when we sign an IGA to actually get money from Metro. Essentially, annually, Metro and local governments within the Tri-County area collaborate to update their plans for outreach, education, and technical assistance in waste reduction and recycling. Each year, there's an IGA for the exchange of those funds. Basically, it covers the development of these plans and outreach as designated through the plans. So I can give you a lot of backstory about why Metro, but if you have any questions, but that's the IGA before you today for consideration.
Questions or comments from commissioners? Seeing no objections, thank you.
All right, that's the list for requests. That is the request for consent agenda list. All of these items will be on this Thursday's business meeting agenda. Next, tolling value statement. Commissioner Savas will take the lead.
Yeah, colleagues, you were all at the C4 retreat with our cities and in a discussion, the 2 days, 1 day of which was committed to the transportation tolling issue. The C4 members discussed updating the joint values of Clackamas communities on I-205 tolling and regional pricing. The draft is before you. It will be discussed Thursday evening. I think what C4 is suggesting or asking is that the participating jurisdictions, Clackamas County and the cities, approve this, a draft like this, and perhaps send this to ODOT and all the other agencies from C4 as a group. As we stated there at C4, we believe the collaboration and the joint efforts of all those jurisdictions bring more power, and this is a way of sharing that. So with your consent, we will discuss this as approved to C4 Thursday evening.
I think this is very important that we send a message to the Oregon legislature. Do something about tolling. Just don't sit there. Just don't form a committee. Stall, stall, stall until they go into the next legislative session and thinking that the problem is fixed. It's not. There are other avenues available to us, but quite frankly, they're a little bit slim. We could consider those later. But it is the thinking as of at least today that this value statement is very important to send on. Commissioners, do you have any comments about it? Commissioner Scholl.
The only way we're going to get any traction against the intent of ODOT to toll our freeway is through combining forces with all our cities in the counties. I'm convinced that the ODOT, the governor's pause to hold off on tolling until January of 2026 is because ODOT is still trying to ferret out how this is going to work. It's a very complicated lift to get this to happen. I'm convinced that the $127+ billion in the state biennial budget for the next 2 years has got room in there to take care of highway infrastructure without tolling the people of this state. And so I encourage all counties and all cities to work with us, with the document Commissioner Sabas has, to push back on the threat of tolling. We cannot tolerate it.
Thank you. Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, I just want, for those who are not understanding this totally, I just want to read the last sentence, the last statement at the very bottom, which says, "This document is not an endorsement or acceptance of any proposal to implement tolling or congestion pricing."
Thank you. Trent Wilson from PGA, you're up here. You assisted in this, and you're very instrumental in managing our C4 jurisdictions. Do you have anything to say?
I'm simply here for questions. As Commissioner Savas mentioned, the C4 group will sort of adopt a final language. Every jurisdiction in the county is looking at this document and may come back with some edits. So whatever C4 blesses on Thursday night, if it's different or very different from this, we'll come back to you to see if you want to put your logo on it.
Okay. Gary, do we need a motion to accept this?
I would recommend a motion, yes, please.
Okay, it's kind of not clear. I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Scholl has moved. We accept the C4 document regarding tolling, and Commissioner Schrader has seconded the motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Tony, please take the poll.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Zavas.
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl.
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much, Commissioners and staff, for bringing this forward. Gary, what's next?
Great. Next is Advisory Board and Commission appointments. Tony, go ahead, please.
Clackamas County Audit Committee, staffed by the Department of Finance, currently has 3 openings on the commission due to retirements and resignations. 9 members are allowed with 2-year terms. Through a recruitment process, 2 applications and 1 reapplication were received. All 3 are recommended for appointment. Recommendations are Josh Cam to a 2nd term, Scott Johnson to a 1st term, Michael Osborne to a 1st term.
Comments? Commissioners? I will accept a motion to appoint to the Audit Committee Josh Cam, Scott Johnson, and Michael Osborne.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Savas has moved that we appoint to the Audit Committee Josh Cam, Scott Johnson, and Michael Osborne. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Tony, please take the poll.
Commissioner Scholl.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much, Commissioners. Gary, what's next?
Next, review of your business meeting agenda for this Thursday, August 3rd, 2023 at 10 a.m. You have a reading and adoption of 2 previously approved land use ordinances, and then all the consent agenda items you heard from today's meeting. That is it. If you have any questions, please let me know prior to Thursday, and staff is happy to answer them for you.
Thank you.
All right, well, the next topic is equity and inclusion in Clackamas County. I think that's really why everyone's here today to discuss this. Commissioners, you've had a lot of discussions over the last few weeks about words and money. And so I guess I just want to start before you have this discussion. You know, words are very, very important, but actions matter more. So what is important that Clackamas County provides, at least at the staff level, I believe you agree as well, Commissioners, is access for people, for the public to access their county government. Access for everyone. Access for all. Access to county services and county infrastructure. Access for people who do not speak English, for example, and access for people who are disabled. Access for people who may have a visual impairment, access for people who may be hard of hearing, access for people who have limited or no financial resources. And according to Oregon Revised Statute 659A.403, access to people regardless of race, color, religion, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, national origin, marital status, or age. That is the law for all public agencies in the state of Oregon. There are 6 state laws and 6 federal laws, a total of 12 laws that require all public entities in either Oregon or the United States to prevent discrimination in public services, in public employment, and in public workplaces. And Clackamas County must follow those 12 laws, as well as demonstrate we are in compliance with those 12 laws in order for the county to receive any state or federal dollars. The Office of Equity and Inclusion has been working with Human Resources and the Office of County Counsel to help make sure we are in compliance with those 12 federal laws. I've also heard a lot of concerns about money. Absolutely right. The county just had to make a significant reduction in general funded services to help pay for our portion of the replacement county courthouse. This past year, Commissioners, you and I have done a deep dive into general funded programs, but we have not into all funding sources at Clackamas County. So my commitment to you going forward in preparing for the next budget cycle is that I and staff will do a deep dive into all funding sources at Clackamas County to determine exactly how every penny of public money is spent, to continue to reduce redundancies and inefficiencies in the spending of public dollars, and ask the question, is this program really a core county service? And I will provide that information to you in the coming months. As well, if the county cannot secure additional state dollars for the Clackamas County Courthouse Replacement Project from the state legislature, we will have to make more service cuts to Clackamas County programs and services. I say all that because money matters too. And in the Office of Equity and Inclusion this current fiscal year, I proposed and you accepted that the office would not be funded with general funds or property taxes, but a cost allocation model, which meant every funding source at Clackamas County would help pay for the office. Granted, there are still some general funds that go to that office, but it's a very, very small portion. But with your direction, I will look at every program, every service, regardless of how it's funded, and consider, is it a core county service or not? So with that, I've heard your concerns. I've heard the concerns of the public. I've read every single email that came in, as you have as well. So here is my proposal moving forward on structural changes to the work that we do at Clackamas County with equity, diversity, and inclusion. So what I'm going to do is remove the Office of Equity and Inclusion from the Office of the County Administrator, retitle the office to something different. But regardless, I need time to work on that. But what I'm going to share with you is that the work is not going to end at Clackamas County, but it will be restructured in a different way that best helps, as I mentioned earlier, primarily ensure Clackamas County is in compliance with 12 state and federal laws related to preventing discrimination in public services, public employment, and public workplaces, and all that entails. I will work in a matrix reporting structure, which means I will still have a hand in overseeing this work, in addition to the department director or directors where this work may be structured in the organization. I will ask staff to work on finding external sources of funding to support this program, so there can be no concern from the public or you commissioners that we're using valuable property taxes or general funds for this work. Under Chapter 2.90 of the County Code, I have the authority to make these structural organizational changes, so I don't need your vote of approval or rejection, but rather I want to tell you I've heard your concerns. I believe this restructuring will help us to still focus on this important work, but do it in a way that best serves the public, our employees, and all those in Clackamas County. So that is my plan, Commissioners. I turn it over to you to make any comments or comments you wish to make.
Thank you, Gary, for that. There's a large crowd here today, and I want to thank you for showing up and giving your opinions, at least through your signage and your presence. As you know, we don't accept public testimony on Tuesdays. However, at the Thursday business meeting, please come forward if you'd like to address the Board of County Commissioners. We value your opinions and look forward to your polite participation at our Thursday business meetings. The Tuesday work that we're doing today is called Issues and Updates, just for a little lesson in procedure that a lot of you aren't aware of, and that's okay, nor should you necessarily be. On Tuesdays are reserved to bring ideas forward to the board for discussion in a very transparent way. It's YouTubed, it's on video, so we're not hiding anything. We do appreciate you coming today, and I know for me, I work very hard as your elected chair to bring forward the values that Clackamas County residents hold dear for the common good of all Clackamas County residents, and I sincerely mean that. Do we have any commissioners who would like to make comments? Commissioner West, you're up.
I have a quick question for County Council. As we kind of do this restructure, or that as Gary kind of does this under his authority, and it sounds like that the former EDI department was not doing the mandatory reporting for Title II and VI as we thought, but as we took a deeper dive, that essential effort was being missed. Does this put the county in a strong legal position in how we're restructuring this? Does this avoid potential future risk for the county? What is this like structurally as Gary potentially makes this move?
Yes, Commissioner West, it would strengthen the county's position with compliance with Title II and with Title VI. It would centralize it for complaint purposes, for compliance purposes, for reporting purposes. So this is fully supported by County Council.
Was it fair to say that some of this was in limbo before this potential move?
That would be a fair assessment.
Okay, thank you.
Gary.
I'd like to quickly add, we are in compliance. I want to be really clear in a public meeting. We are in compliance with Title II and Title VI of the Federal Code. We could strengthen how we do it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Scholl, you're up.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being here this morning. Going back to 24 May, the last day of the budget hearings during budget deliberations, one of the items on the budget was the $827,000 for equity, inclusion, and diversity. And one of the jobs of anybody on the budget committee is to look at budget items that can be reduced or eliminated or added to. Based on what I've seen from EID over the last couple of years, I felt that the effort to ensure inclusion and access of all people to the services of this county could be done in a better way, more cost-effective way. If we take the $827,000 a year and give that a 5% increase each year, in 10 years, the county would have spent $9,575,000 just on that 3.8 FTEs. I feel that could be done more efficiently. The county has many programs to ensure training is done countywide. One of them is the training required each year for sexual harassment awareness. And that's done very efficiently through a video that every one of our 2,500, ladies and gentlemen, when I'm speaking, you want to keep that down. 2,500 people in the county are trained each year in a very efficient way. I believe also that in this county, we need to make sure we're in compliance with the Constitution of the United States, in particular, 14th Amendment, and the 1964 Civil Rights Act, which restricts or prohibits any service being offered to someone based on the immutable traits they possess. So there were reports in the county from county employees who felt that the efforts of the Equity, Inclusion, and Diversity Department were marginalizing them because they didn't fall into the category that EID was concentrating on for supporting certain groups of people. You've heard the word or the term BIPOC. That's just an example. So it became apparent to me that if we really want to have true equal access, and if we want to make sure that everyone in the county is welcomed to share with the services that this county provides, that the approach being used by EID was not all-inclusive. About 10 days after my motion on 24 May, the Supreme Court of the United States made a decision, a 6-3 decision, to prohibit the use of EID type considerations or affirmative action in college admissions. So here we are today. We have people concerned about what if the Equity, Inclusion, and Diversity Department, 3.8 people, is eliminated. Will that mean that those of you who are here today who have legitimate concerns to make sure that every person in the county, regardless of their skin color, their race, their nation of origin, their gender or sexual orientation, is going to be provided for? And I believe it will. I will continue to make motions to eliminate anything out of the county budget that's paid for by hardworking taxpayers that is not an absolute necessity for this county to do, i.e. a core service. We have to get back to a lean government. We have to get back to a cost-effective government. And most of you will agree, whether you're for EID or against it, you might agree that in the next few years, we are going to be looking at a ever-increasing difficulty in paying taxes. Today, I saw a report that homelessness is no longer the #1 concern of residents in the greater Portland region. It's now the cost of living. And people are being stressed every day to pay for those bills, to pay with the property taxes. And it's, again, one of my most important duties as a commissioner is to make sure I stand up for those small businesses and those families that are paying those bills and do everything I can to hold down the cost of government. So I think what we heard from Administrator Schmidt is an idea to be sensitive to some of the concerns we're seeing in the nation and in the county. And I'm hoping that we can do this and do it without regard to immutable traits, and make sure that every single person in this county feels welcome and can receive the services of Clackamas County. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioner Schrader.
Well, first, let me thank everyone for being here this morning, which really is a necessary conversation we have to have as citizens and as Oregonians and Americans, no matter what our opinion is. And I do want to say to my colleagues here, one of the principles I've always adhered to as an elected official is that I will always respect and work in cooperation and collaboration with the individuals that I am elected to serve with, whether or not we agree or disagree. Commissioner Shull, I've always honored your military service. Ben, you are full of energy and are working on major recovery issues. Chair Smith, I don't know what to say except I love you, girlfriend. Okay, there you go. And Paul, you have been a mentor and a friend to me with your analytical abilities for years. But I hope that you just give me a moment so I can make some statements today. And as I said, some folks are going to disagree. Some folks will agree. I believe counties, including Clackamas County, has a critical role in building healthy and vibrant communities. Some communities experience poor outcomes in areas such as education, health, safety, and economic well-being, often for generations, because of a history of marginalization and unjust policies and practices. Now, I know some folks won't agree with me, but I also know, or from my perspective, thank you for listening, I do think that there have been significant historical events in this country that have marginalized people who are Black, Indigenous, people of color, and I think that we need to still be addressing these issues today as we move forward. We have come a long way from when I was a child. Martin Luther King, well, starting with Frederick Douglass, and he's one of your favorites, Ben. Martin Luther King and all the folks that have worked for economic justice. So we need to think about an approach about how we make sure everybody has equal access to be prosperous and to have a home and to have food and to have services. And I want to say this. Equity issues are not new. They've been buried, and that's why this is such a hard conversation to have, because it's been buried. There's a thing, I'm a biologist, as many of you know, called disturbance ecology. When we have a flood, a fire, there's devastation and pain, but from that, life springs forward. So having this out in the open, talking about it, trying to understand it, and identify where it is, that's really the only way forward through this. And that's a good thing for all of us. I wish I could tell you they were my words, but this is the words of Dave Summers, who's the county executive at Shonomis County, Washington. What is diversity? Diversity is the presence of different and multiple characteristics that make up individual and collective identities, including race, gender, age, religion, sexual orientation, ethnicity, national origin, socioeconomic status, language, and physical ability. Equity, and this is where I think that there seems to be a disconnect to me. So I like this definition of what we talk about equity. The process of identifying and removing the barriers that create disparities in the access to resources and means, and the achievement of fair treatment and equal opportunities to thrive. And inclusion, the creation of an environment in which any individual or group can be and feel welcomed, respected, supported, and valued to participate fully. What I see equity is, I'll give you some examples. Franklin County, Ohio, they invested ARPA funds into workforce development and career readiness for populations. Missoula, Montana, developing a diversion plan and a crisis response team to reduce the justice involvement of those with behavioral health and substance use issues. Miami-Dade County, Florida, ensuring access to parks, recreation, and open spaces for all residents, especially those in underserved communities and those with disabilities. And we have an underserved community. We've been working on it for years, I think, Commissioner Salas, that we've been trying to build more parks in our urban unincorporated areas because they need it. They have to have it. Marin County, California, operationalizing equity in county government through an intentional and inclusive hiring process to build a more representative workforce. They are adhering to federal guidelines here. That's what they're trying to do, and they are trying to hire on merit. Sullivan County, New Hampshire, supporting the justice-involved population beyond incarceration to increase a successful and healthy transition back into the community. Dane County, Wisconsin, providing driver's education to youth from underserved communities and prioritizing grants to organizations that focus on addressing disparate outcomes in local justice and food systems. Buncombe County, North Carolina, leveraging strategic partnerships across the county at the leadership, employee, and community level, as well as with other local municipalities to achieve inclusive outcomes and produce work that reflects the community. Adams County, Colorado, creating a more resilient community through investing in lived experience professionals and targeting intersectional issues related to homelessness and housing. These are counties across the nation, and this is just a few of the many. But Clackamas County, and I'm going to thank my colleagues for this because this was a unanimous vote that we had, and that was giving over $600,000 of ARPA funds to a faith-based organization in Canby that is teaching people about financial literacy, making sure they have English as a second language, making sure they have food, making sure they have clothing, making sure if their children need extra tutoring or work that they are there for them. So when we look at this kind of work, we don't need to always look at it through a lens of left, right, or whatever that is. We have to look at it in a way of how we treat people and our actions at the ground level. And what I said to my colleagues earlier today, I believe giving that money really gives people an opportunity to move up the economic ladder so equality in their communities is possible for them. So that is just my viewpoint. I will tell folks today I will continue to work on all these issues. I will continue to work with the colleagues I am elected to serve with. I will continue to support equity, diversity, and inclusion, but I'm going to add another word to this, though. One more word. I'm going to add, and I've talked to Ben about this, I'm going to add the R word, which means resiliency, because all of this work that we do to get people to be participating citizens in our democracy so we can all experience equality is probably some of the most critical work that I think a county does. And we will be working on a recovery center. I know that Commissioner, my colleague Ben, we took a look at one recently that is quite remarkable, helping people get clean and sober, getting them off the street, getting them housing. And what I would say to everyone, these are acts of compassion, these are acts of love, these are acts of caring for one another, and that's how I define equity, and that's how I believe that we move forward so everyone can be equal in our country. So thank you, everyone, for indulging me. Gary, I want to thank you for coming up with a structural solution to this. This has been very hard on me, and I think it's been hard on my colleagues as well. But I do want to say this work will continue in this county. If I have anything to do with it, and I think I do, and I will continue to work in good faith with my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, I want to thank everyone for being here today, for those of you who have emailed us or contacted us. Unlike the turnkey Quality Inn issue back then when people emailed me, I was able to email you back and respond and point you to the board packet to point you to the facts of what was actually occurring and what was not. There was a lot of misinformation back then on that particular topic. And but this time, we don't really have a packet. We haven't had a work session. I haven't been able to point all of you to clarify some of the misunderstandings I read in some of those emails. And one of them, which that this program here at Clackamas County is affirmative action. It's not. The other thing that I read in there is in some of the emails was that somehow what we do here influences policy at schools for our kids. We do not. It does not. But I do want to get back to at least to the money part. With the Quality Inn issue, that certainly has resulted in us spending about $3 million more per year of public money, public dollars, than we would have otherwise. The Title II and Title VI, I will say, you know, even as an employer, prior to being a county commissioner, as an employer, I had my company for years. I had to live by the rules, and the rules always change. They never get easier. They always get harder. They always get more difficult. They seem to restrict a lot of our activities and cost more money for operations, and that ultimately results in more cost to my customers. And in this role, when we get sued because of a claim in the past, and we've had millions of dollars of claims which we paid out in public dollars because maybe our workforce wasn't trained, maybe those discrimination claims were not, could have been avoided. And that's what I think we're trying to do, is protect our public dollars and do things as wisely as we can. So to abandon our responsibility to Title II and Title VI and abandon what this all stands for is not responsible. It's not responsible for your public dollars. And my concern is that people might take what they perceive, unfortunately, which is really out in the media. This seems to be more of a political issue than it is a practical issue. We've had it in place in some form starting in 2004. Is that about right, Gary?
2000.
In the year 2000. So for 23 years we've been doing this. It's been building and building and building as the requirements have gotten more, more stringent. And we've also passed resolutions by a very mixed, I think the one I remember in particular was when we actually elevated the department, was back in 2013, I believe, when Chair Ludlow and Commissioner Smith and I and Martha were on the board at the time. We passed that resolution unanimously to support that for all the reasons. And I stand by that today, as I think we all do. I can't speak for everyone here today. But I just want to say that I wish we could do more for education on this, to find out what it is, let people know what we really are doing and what we're not doing. And by the last swath of emails I've seen in the last couple of weeks, so there's a lot of misinformation out there. So I apologize if I did not respond to your emails, but I wanted to be able to respond with information that is of value. And this is such a vast topic that I would still be writing emails if I try to cover all the issues that were kind of raised. That's really all I have today, Chair. I look forward to seeing how this is done. And I think that, frankly, it's really important for us to have a strategic plan that has results, that has measurements, so that we can monitor and make sure that what is happening in the county is within our policies and in our standards, that we are meeting those responsibilities. And frankly, if there is any excursions from policy where maybe an employee goes too far, regardless whether it's too far this way or that way, that there's action taken to remedy that. But I think we have to live within those responsibilities, and I just reckon back to the most recent one on the corner, just out here on the corner of Library Court and Beaver Creek, with the issue that hit the newspaper with one of our employees painted a swastika on a memorial. Totally inappropriate. And a county employee. That county employee was discharged, and could we have done a better job to educating that person and be more sensitive, responsible? I believe so. Chair, I'll conclude my comments there. Yield back to the floor.
Commissioner West, you're up.
Well, Chair, it looks a little bit like my favorite holiday today in the meeting. We got red and green. It looks like Christmas and summertime. So let's I don't know, remember goodwill to all men and all of us as we talk about a tough topic here. It's interesting to me how we had an entire civil rights movement to teach this country and the world, showed the world that we don't focus on people's immutable characteristics that frankly just don't even matter or speak to who they are. We value people on the content of their character. Now it seems in today's culture the only thing we're taught to focus on is our immutable traits and to look through that lens. And we have this hyper fixation on these affinity groups and these different boxes that we categorize and stereotype people into. I know because I've lived it. But that struggle that we all deal with is real. But the EDI or DEI movement has specific worldviews and ideologies that require full allegiance to it, and it requires that you forget about some of the struggles that we went through to get to where we need to be. And I'll speak to this a little bit. The diversity, equity, and inclusion ideologies, they've really captured every institution of American culture. Within the United States, with limitless expansion, government bureaucracies and corporations and academia have all been sieged by this specific worldview. The doctrine itself is pernicious, as it promotes a very strong left-wing ideology that manipulates the very dark emotions of guilt and shame within Americans. Furthermore, those ideologies are rooted, ideas are not new, but they're rooted in the orthodoxy of critical race theory.
Go ahead, please.
The result of Clackamas County's Equity, Diversion, and Inclusion Department and Clackamas County Equity, Diversion, and Inclusion Council has not been focused on bringing this county together, but objectively, it's been more interested in infusing political activism into the county and to its culture. Ultimately, it should be the people, through their elected representatives, that get to choose what happens and how this public institution is run, not the bureaucrats. We are captured by the euphemisms and the false words of DEI. They're all often just Orwellian terms. But what I don't like is I don't like using taxpayer money to fund left-wing ideologies that seek to divide people into groups, pit them against one another, oppressor versus oppressee, with separate standards of judgment based on where someone's ancestors have come from. In Clackamas County, I hope to God we do not sacrifice ideas for ideology. The Clackamas County bureaucracies have operated in very divisive ways. I have a stack of email here that are quite appalling about some of the language and the manipulation that has been used to divide this county in the name of Clackamas. I think that we should have policies that are fully rooted in merit, fairness, and equality and colorblindness.
Okay, please, folks, just let the commissioners be.
Diversity used to mean something different than it does today. And I think we have an example about how we're doing it right in Clackamas County, which I'll get to in a second, but diversity should bring more expertise to the table, more information, more perspectives, work to ensure that something important is not overlooked, that we look for talent and ideas and bright people to engage authentically with us. But what diversity is not is just diversity of skin pigmentation, while we don't care about people's ideas any longer. It's not about groupthink or homogeny, which often it seems to be if you toe the line, if you fall in line within your affinity group, if you believe the way the orthodoxy teaches you to believe and you don't speak out of line, you're fine. But the moment that you try to have a different point of view or lift your head up, you're a racist, you're a bigot, you're a white supremacist, you're all the rest. But the thing is that we are better when we bring a diversity of all types of people from all walks of life to come and contribute to our county and to our communities. Inclusion should be about anybody regardless of their immutable traits. One way to capture more vulnerable populations and make sure we're reaching everybody is not so much to be focused on people's pigmentation of their skin, but maybe to be focused on socioeconomic and income issues so we can have a bigger net to help more people. Equity used to just be about fairness. especially when there's real discrimination, when there's real discrimination and we generally need to level the playing field, we act and we do that. And so many times in our history, we've had to do that. For example, one that's often talked about and has even been, people have come and testified about, there's some signs about it in the crowd. If somebody legitimately has a disability, has some discrepancy or lacks of access, nobody blinks an eye that we should not have wheelchair ramps or elevators or parking spaces enforced with expensive fines or other standard accommodations. We created equity in a legitimate discrepancy so that person can have equal access for their own outcomes. So here's part of the problem with the way we look at DEI now. Diversity in practice, like I said earlier, means diversity of skin pigmentation, but you must have uniformity with the thought group. Equity simply means we don't want to treat people as individuals through an equal process. We want to normalize group outcomes. Equity of outcomes is the guiding principle of the modern DEI movement. It justifies treating people differently based on the basis of group identity in order to equalize group identity outcomes. There are a number of studies that aren't cooked through statistical bias and some social studies department. One came out of Harvard, recent article on New York Times. I can get you those articles if anybody wants them. Are now starting to see that there's a lot of divisiveness within corporations and organizations within the DEI movement, and it's not actually having good measurable outcomes that we once thought. If you support equity the way it currently fits, I will just use Ibram X. Kendi, who is one of the leading thought leaders on anti-racist movement within the culture. And he said it very easily how he believes that we should address discrimination. The only remedy to racist discrimination is anti-racist discrimination. The only remedy to past discrimination is present discrimination. Ibram X. Kendi. He also said, I'll get to what he said in a minute. So basically, if you believe in equity, you believe we have to use modern day discrimination to fix discrimination. I fundamentally think that's morally wrong. I'm just quoting one of the major thought leaders, and I've seen his books at government events in the state of Oregon promoted not only in our schools, but also in different municipal community events. Come get Ibram X. Kendi's book. He also said people like me who adopt children of color are colonizers. But he's a major thought leader within this group. Why do we have to why do we have to hold account of our different departments accountable? It's our role as elected. It may not be popular with everybody in this county, but it is the right and moral thing to do. I have a stack of emails here that are quite concerning that came from these different departments in the county, and I want to address one of them that I think is actually quite racist. I'm going to read the one sentence on this, and I'm going to explain to you where this thought originates from and why it is racist. They say, the undeniable pattern of violence perpetrated by the dominant white culture, focus on those three words, against Black Americans. Dominant white culture. Often the same group would tell us to be less white. That's not unusual. We've all heard that before. Where does that come from? That comes from Judith Kratz, 1978. She wrote a book, an early training book on how to deal with whiteness through anti-racist training. She's a major thought leader within this movement. Her work from 1978 inspired a poster that went up that told exactly what this white dominant culture means. That poster was in the African American Smithsonian Institute and promoted by our government. They had to take it down because of the backlash, but what that poster basically said, and Judith Kratz was who they quoted and cited, what is white dominant culture? What does that mean? It speaks to a specific value system. Give me 2 seconds and I want to look at this directly because I have a picture of this poster directly from the Smithsonian. Be more than happy to share this with anybody. You can also just look at the article from it was widely reported across the media. Give me 2 seconds, I apologize. Thank you for your patience. Here it is. Want to talk about the evils of whiteness. Whiteness culture in the United States. What did they say that was? Looking here at their poster is the dominant white culture. The whiteness refers to white people in their traditions, their attitudes, and the way of life that have been normalized over time and now are considered standards of practice in the United States. These are white things, such as rugged individualism. The individual is the primary unit in self-reliance. That's white dominant culture. Independence and autonomy, highly valued. I guess according to Judith Kratz and probably Abram X. Kennedy, those are part of white culture. Individuals assume that you will be in control of your own environment and you get what you deserve. That value is, I guess, part of white culture. Says the scientific method is part of white culture. This is from our United States government. Objective, rational, linear thinking. That we have a Protestant work ethic, hard work and key success, work before you play. If you didn't meet your goals, you didn't work hard enough. Religion, Christianity is the norm. Anything that's Judeo-Christian in tradition, and no tolerance for deviation of a single God concept, if you believe in a single God. The status of power with wealth or having a job or respecting authority. Time management, I guess, is part of white culture. I would not know the difference if this was written by David Duke. The evils of whiteness and white culture, those are American values. Those are American values. Hard work, showing up, the scientific method. Western civilizations promote those regardless of your skin color. Our county, in this email, wants to talk about the evils of white culture. This is divisive. Divisive stuff from our county.
Stop. Stop, sir, or you will be removed. Thank you very
And
much.
I am only quoting what has come out of the American government, and specifically was inspired by Judith Kratz, who wrote the book, White Awareness, Handbook for Anti-Racism Training. I'm only quoting them. I just don't think that our county should be dividing people up based on their immutable traits and promoting things like divisive language, like against one another, like dominant white culture. And this is where it came from. I don't think we should be promoting using discrimination to fix discrimination. I don't believe in that. I think it's wrong. So, with that said, I do hope that we do focus on getting back to many of the things that my commissioners have said, where it's a diversity of people from all walks. And I think we're doing that in a way that we are looking at complex issues and bringing forth ideas and people from different places and different areas to come help advise us. One of that is on the homeless and recovery issue. I think our recovery summit is going to be an idea of that we had to go outside of this this area where we have had such a chronic issue and go and look outside of ourselves to find those ideas and to find those things that will help us have better policies to solve that complex problem. That's the type of diversity we need. We need to make sure that we're including everybody, and we need to make sure that we are about helping people get equal access at every opportunity, but by no means are we going to guarantee equal outcomes, because we can't and we never can, and it's an unachievable goal. So I'll end with this, is I really feel like we've come a long way in Oregon, and we've come a long way in our country, a real long way. I think, if I'm right, it was in the 60s, only 4% of Americans believed in interracial marriage, that was okay. Which is ironic now, as I stand before you as a married gay man. But and I can't find anybody who doesn't think that you shouldn't marry somebody you love based on their skin color today. I literally can't. I don't know that person. I'm sure they exist because there's a lot of bad people that exist. I can't find that person. We've made progress. We've done good in so many ways. If you look at the data going into the 80s and 90s, race relations and people feeling like they were getting along and moving forward, we're actually around 70% across the country. Really saw a lot of improvement around that. Since some of the infusion in the most divisive parts of this work, we have seen some of those race relations and those tensions actually rise again. But we have so many places where we can be proud of the progress we've made. We always will have work to do. There will always be bad actors to call out. Commissioner Salvas called one out. We had a guy who I wasn't here, but he wrote horrible hate swastika on somewhere in the county. But the county acted swiftly. And that man's fired, that hit the media. I doubt he has a job today, and that's because of his own bad behavior. But the county acted swiftly and dealt with that. And I don't think one-offs of bad behavior speak to anybody in this room. I think none of you are like that in here. Not one of you would ever condone such hideous, dehumanizing behavior. I fought for marriage equality in Oregon. I changed the constitution of this state. You guys know what law I did that under and how I won it? We did it under the 14th Amendment, the same one Scholl's talking about, and that all of us care so deeply about, that reminded us that regardless of our mutable trait, we're all Americans, we're all people, we're all children of God. And we now have fair and equal access to our government. My family does. The outcomes and how we determine that and how my family is determined is up between me and my husband and my son. But we were given fair and equal access under the law. And I stand for that, and that was one of the best fights of my life. I'm very proud of it. I just want to get rid of them. I just don't want the taxpayers of Clackamas County to have to pay for the most divisive pieces of leftist radical ideology, but where we can come together on common American values and common American and just values of good people from different backgrounds, and come together as a community. That's what I want to promote within the county. I know I said some controversial things, but there's some really controversial things that have come out of this county that the public didn't maybe know about. So that I stuck my neck out a little bit and talked about them, I did, but you guys should know about them and where those thoughts originate from. I'll leave it at that. But I would ask you guys to know that we are going to, I think you guys need to know that we are going to work diligently to make sure not only are we compliant with the law and with what's right, but we're going to find other creative ways to bring more people into their county government to feel like they can participate in it. But we're not going to do it based, and we shouldn't be doing it based on things like their immutable traits.
Any other comments from commissioners? I just want a point of clarification. One of the commissioners mentioned something about lawsuits. I will say this, Clackamas County gets sued for everything because it's perceived we have very deep pockets. And so government is an easy target to try to extract funds from an entity, and it's not personal. And we do settle a lot of lawsuits. Because the law states if we go to court, win or lose, we're still on hook for the other side's attorney's fees. And the risk management fund that pays for the lawsuits, it's paid for on Clackamas County taxpayers' property taxes. So we try to mitigate our risk and our cost of lawsuits going forward. We can't help who sues us and who does not. But regarding this issue, those lawsuits on this issue, I believe, are minimal. Thank you. I want to thank the folks for coming in today. Again, you can come back on Thursday and voice your opinions. I'm sure you'll be back on Thursday to tell us what you think. I think we can tell by some of the comments. We like to run an orderly meeting where all opinions are heard and all opinions are honored without being shouted down or any type of other activities that do not lend itself to a professional exchange of ideas in a business meeting. Thank you all for coming. You can stay for the rest of our comments if you want, or you can leave. It's up to you. Gary, do we have anything else?
Final item today is Commissioner Communications.
Commissioner Communications, you might want to stay for that. Who wants to go first today? Commissioner Schull?
Chair Smith, I think I'll hold my comments until Thursday.
Okay, thank you very much. Commissioner Savas?
Well, I think we've done a lot of commenting today.
Schrader?
I am done with my comments as well. Thank you, Chair.
And West, you've talked a lot today.
Talked a lot.
I bet you're done.
I'm done. I know.
Yeah, thank you all for coming. Seeing no business before this meeting, we are adjourned.